Hi, and welcome to Aging in Place for every stage in life. What if you could visit or have a home that would accommodate anyone at any age, any physical ability, at any time? How cool would that be? That's what we're doing here at Aging in Place. Why me? Because I'm a doctor of psychology and I specialize in physical spaces and health and wellness. Also, I love designing with intent at any age. Why now? Because we, the baby boomers, want to age in place gracefully, and we want our families around us as much as we can. And why you, the audience? Because we want you to experience what it's like to have a home that's safe, aesthetically pleasing, and that you can live in at any age, with any ability, at any time. I'd like to introduce you now to Aging in Place podcast for every stage in life. Hi, and welcome to the Aging in Place podcast for any stage in life. I'm Dr. Debbie Lyons, and I'm here with my guests today, Heather and Brian Quinn. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
12 Oaks Construction. It's a treat for me to have both of you here today. And part of the reason that I was really excited for all of you to meet both Heather and Brian is because just recently they built a phenomenal house. Let's talk a little bit about your company and about your family, and then why your house is something we want to talk about when it comes to aging in place and visitability. Okay. Brian, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. Yeah. No, thank you for asking. Thank you for having us. I own a company called 12 Oaks Group, and we are a custom home builder on Hilton Head. And we do construction projects anywhere from, the smaller homes up to the 6, 7, 8,000 square foot homes. Some of them are beachfront, some of them are marshfront, some of them are single story, and
little something for everybody.
A little something for everyone.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your home. You all decided it was time. Well, first let me introduce you, Heather, and talk about your family so they know why you built the way you built.
Sure. We have 2 little girls. Ella Grace just turned 6 and Rose is 4. Mm-hmm. And we kind of stumbled upon the lot that we eventually built on here. And we realized that we were just in the position to kind of go big or go home, so to speak. And so it also doesn't come up every time where, you can build your dream house. So we really took a lot of time, realizing that this is our forever home, exactly. God willing. And so with Brian's expertise, we really sat down. It's not often that you have to think so far into the future.
What's interesting about this whole discussion is before you guys moved in, I met Brian. I had met him, but we started chatting, and he said, "Do you want to take a walk through the house?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a certified aging in place specialist, and show me around." And what brought it up was literally we started in the garage and walked through. And that's part of the reason I'm so excited to talk with you. You really were proactive in planning your house, not just for aging in place, but for better living now, for your parents, grandparents, and your kids.
Sure.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how you came up with that thought process even?
Well, the biggest thing for us is, we saw the lot, and we've always dreamed about building our own home. And so we decided, okay, well, if we're going to do it, we're going to do something that we're going to live in for the rest of our lives. And we also wanted a home that was probably a little bit bigger than we were anticipating, but we wanted a place that we could bring our entire family. My mom's in her 70s, Heather's mom's in her late 60s. We both at the time had grandparents that, had special needs at that point. We also had babies in strollers. And so we knew that we had to have something that was, accessible for everybody that was coming through, and being able to roll the kids around or roll grandma around, whatever it was going to be. But also we wanted a home that was big enough that, everybody would feel comfortable coming to us.
And you could grow in.
And that we could grow in, absolutely. So we set it up and we said, okay, well, what do we need now? What are we going to need later? And, I don't know if we ever went as far as actually putting on, a paper of exactly, like a a T-chart of needs, wants, now, later. But I feel like that is something that, somebody really does need to do if they're thinking about building their forever home.
Heather, what are some things that were important to the two of you?
I think at this stage, I have a really large family, and Brian has family, and I think all of our parents luckily are very healthy, but I think at the time of building, what was very important to us is making sure that down the road, if a parent needed to live with us, that wasn't going to be such an impossible option.
Okay.
And, one of the biggest things that came up first, which I completely balked against, was the elevator. Because, I grew up in a modest household, and you just hear elevator and it seems very extravagant.
Mm-hmm.
And it is definitely a cost, but we kind of made concessions on other pieces of the house, because once Brian explained to me the importance, we have 3 levels. So that was an important component. And
if you wanted your grandparents to visit, or even mom and dad, or
right,
heaven forbid.
Absolutely. Sure. And we've utilized it so much more in like very necessary situations. We haven't even been in the house a year. Yeah.
Yeah. Even recently, we had a family member that came through that was in a walker that probably would not be able to come into our home and actually enjoy it the way that we do if we didn't have that elevator. It's an important component to the way that we see the house growing with us.
Talk to me about planning for a house. I know in my research, there's a difference between building a house from scratch, brand new, and then renovating. When you're building homes, and let's talk about custom homes first, what are some things that you advise your clients that you think of now because you've done it that you never thought of before? And, if cost is no object, go for it. If cost is an object, then are there ways you can how do I even want to say it? Prepare for the future without maybe putting blocks in for grab bars without really.
Sure. And I don't want to beat the elevator thing to death, obviously, but, we've had situations out there where we've done multiple closets stacked on top of each other. And from floor to floor, those closets are in the exact same spot. We frame it differently so that we've got a false floor that can actually be removed. If you can afford it at that point,
exactly.
Then you can remove that floor and you can pop in that elevator.
Stacking closets is a way to prepare or be proactively ready in the case that someone has a traumatic injury or something that's unexpected.
Sure.
Are there different, are elevators different price points now? Can you get fancy elevators?
You can go from a baseline elevator, which right now in our area, baseline elevator is going to run anywhere from $18,000 to $20,000.
Okay.
Inclinators.
Is that what you have?
I think so.
Is it?
No.
I have no idea.
Some of the more higher end elevators, like an inclinator and things like that, they can run $25,000 to $30,000. You can spend $40,000, $50,000 on an elevator, but they all essentially do the same thing.
Well, exactly.
It's just a matter of point A to point B, essentially. But I speak highly of it, and we install a tremendous amount of them in a lot of our new construction homes. I'd say at least 80% of our homes that we build have these elevators in it or abilities for future elevators.
You know what I'd love to do with you guys is kind of walk through your house and talk about some things that you proactively have planned for, are planning for, if we can.
Sure.
You want to start the garage or you want to go in through the front door? Let's talk about entrances.
Right.
Low clearance thresholds are
Which
important.
Means what?
The threshold, whenever you walk into a door, that little metal piece that you step over. You can actually get a handicap accessible threshold. So essentially, if you're walking over top of it, it doesn't have that tremendous step up. So you can push a chair over it. You can push a stroller over it.
I was just going to say, Heather and I want to know this. Is it pretty? Is it going to, when you say handicap accessible, do we go, no, thank you?
Actually, it's funny you say that because the majority of our clients prefer the handicap accessible thresholds because of the fact that they're lower profile and you don't see them as much.
You know, I'm 66 and my dad lives with me. Okay, you're much younger, you're in your 30s, but it's interesting how we all have the same desires. Like when I have my grandkids, I love to be able to take them in with a stroller. When my dad is in his walker, it's really amazing if he has to step over things.
Sure.
What about door width?
Door widths are, the real answer to that is you want a door that's at least 36 inches wide if you're going to be taking a wheelchair or something.
Stroller or something like that. Okay.
Those, in my opinion, are important in some of the more accessible areas like a master bedroom, master bathroom. You can get doors larger than that. You can get double doors up to 6 feet. I mean, you can get double doors bigger than that. But the rule of thumb as far as accessibility in a home is going to be a 36-inch wide opening. Commercially, there's completely different rules. And, some of these apartment complexes and condos and things like that are going to have complete different
set of codes and norms. Yes.
Absolutely. However, of course, right now we're only speaking residentially, but 36-inch wide is an appropriate way to go. I'm not saying that all your closets in your house, if you're in a wheelchair, if you've got some accessibility needs, it's not necessary that your closet has to be a 36-inch wide door. But if you're going to actually freely egress and ingress into that room, that's an appropriate size.
What about wayfinding? Is that an important thing? In other words, for your grandfather or my dad, being able to find their way to the bathroom, is it intuitive? Lighting, are those things that you have to consider?
We live in an age right now where just with technology in general, and I mean, we've got things out there with, it's only 5 years old. I just heard it's a 5-year-old thing. Alexa, Amazon's Alexa, 5 years old. I think that happened like 2 weeks ago. But it's such an integral part in so many people's homes right now, and it talks to everything.
It's so interesting. We're going to take a quick break because our producer is already giving me the 86 sign about 5 minutes ago.
We don't follow a lot of rules,
exactly.
I'm sorry.
No, exactly. Stay with us. There's more to come on the Aging in Place podcast for any stage in life. Hi, I'm Dr. Debbie Lines. Design elements are psychologically and physically supportive and conducive to health and wellness. To learn more about what Lines on Design can do for you, for more information on certified aging in place and facilitative and supportive design, look for us at linesondesign.com. That's LYNES on design.com. We are back on Aging in Place for any stage in life. Once again, I'm here with Heather and Brian Quinn. And during the breaks, we have such a good time talking about, it really is. It is. It's just interesting talking about living in families. One of the things we talked about, we left with Alexa being able to run our world and our homes.
Sure.
But we're talking about kind of the design of your house and how you set it up really for multi-generational living, or at least visiting.
Sure.
And we were talking a little bit about the way that you laid out your main living area with light, and talk to us a little bit about how you all did that. Heather, you want to? Yeah.
Well, Heather was a big part of the design, so I'm going to let her take it.
We were able to do a large open plan. So you would come up from the garage. Let's just say you did take the elevator and you're in the living room, which is an open floor plan to the kitchen. But one thing that we were able to do that we were just talking about, our house is on the marsh, and we have a sliding, what's it called?
It's a bifold door.
A bifold door. So it opens up completely our living room out to the porch and out to the marsh.
And what's interesting to me about that, we were sharing that it's almost like biophilia. If you're in a place where you cannot go to nature, you can bring nature in. And from a health and wellness standpoint at any age, it's incredible. I mean, the evidence supports all of that. And you were sharing, if you don't mind a story, but you just lost your grandfather.
Yes, I did. But we were able to, he was almost 92 and kind of on his way out, and we were able to bring him to our house. It was pretty stressful because, you would hate to bring him to your home and then have him be injured or, not feel good. And so we put him in the elevator. It went seamlessly. He was able to walk with his walker through our living room straight out to our back porch, where he just sat for, I think, 5 or 6 hours
in a rocking chair.
in a rocking chair on the marsh.
What a gift.
It was a true gift. I mean, without
Absolutely.
sounding hokey, there were just, I mean, the breezes, and it really, you know, was amazing for all of us, and not just him. But the fact that we didn't have to call a nurse to come navigate him up and down stairs. It puts a lot of stress on, you know, the family, especially like my mother and uncles that, you know, were just wanting to kind of give their father one of his last days, and it ended up being one of his last days, and it was amazing. So
it's funny how once you experience those kinds of things, it really makes an impact on the way you view even nature, the way you view coming in or out of a home.
Absolutely.
You know, and again, I think it's fascinating. You talk about an open floor plan. Do you have a master suite on the first floor? Was that important? And then you actually said you have a second master.
Well, it's a larger second room, but yeah, we call it the second master. And our goal whenever we were designing the home was to have both the master and the second master, which is on the third floor, to be the closest room to our elevator. Oh. So you can get in and get out extremely quickly.
Bathroom within that master.
It is an ensuite, and our goal for that larger upstairs room, which we call the second master, was that we have a walk-in shower, and there's a seat in there, and there's grab rails and all that stuff in there too. It's very easy to get in and out of. We have pocket doors, which is actually a big deal. So, you know, you think about these, back to our conversation about 36-inch openings, you know, well, when you open a 36-inch door, you still have about, you know, 2¼ inches that's in the doorway whenever that door is completely open.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
So a pocket door disappears completely.
Okay.
Clears completely. So that room actually has pocket doors so that you can get in and out of the openings a lot easier. You know, they also talk about the accessibility as far as the circle.
That's right. The circle.
You've heard of the circle?
Yep. Can I turn my wheelchair around? Can my stroller go round and round?
Yep. So we were mindful whenever we did that bathroom upstairs to make sure that we could actually get that circle in between the toilet, the sink, and the shower. The vanity up there is not a standard height vanity. It's a lower vanity as well. We made sure that we had 20 amp circuits for all the lighting and the general.
Now talk to me about that.
Okay. So, actually it's a good thing to touch on. So when you're setting up a home, a lot of times, one of the first things that, you know, it's a secret of the building trades, that if you want to start saving money, you start converting all your circuitry down to 15 amp circuits, which is a different size wire and a different size circuit. So in a lot of masters and a lot of, you know, secondary bedrooms and general lighting areas, it's not necessarily the electrician, it's not necessarily the builder. Sometimes it's just cost prohibitive stuff. Many people will switch that to a 15 amp circuit. And I know that's kind of confusing, that, okay, why is it that much less? Well, the breakers and the wire and everything, even the connections within the devices is actually, takes a lot more labor to do it. So a 15 amp circuit will run all the lighting in a room, will run a couple of receptacles and things like that. But that additional 5 amps that you get with a 20 amp circuit. Now, mind you, again, this is more expensive to do it.
All right.
But
more
that
expensive considerably? Hundreds?
On a percentage level, I would say 20 to 25% more for that particular circuit. However, what you have there is you have the ability to run additional equipment that you haven't set up your house for.
Oh, okay.
Things like
my dad's pacemaker.
A defibrillator.
Yes, that's exactly what he's got.
Yes. Things, those additional amperages that you probably will not be using right now, unless all of a sudden you run your hairdryer, your iron, you know, you're blasting the music at the loudest level, and then you have a space heater. You know, you're not going to.
So yes, we will need a 20.
Maybe. Okay. However, setting up those main rooms and your bathroom.
Okay. All right.
And your bathroom with 20 amps is an important
kitchen
thing.
Too.
Most of the kitchen circuitry is going to be 20 amps.
Okay. All right.
But general lighting, we're sitting in a room right now where it's probably running 15 amps just fine. You got a computer and you got all this fancy equipment going right now, and it's fine. But, if you had to bring in something.
Right. Significant.
And I don't even, I'm not certified, and I'm not, thankfully, I'm not in tune with a lot of the equipment that's needed in some of this, further on in life situations.
Exactly.
But
even with babies or kids.
Yeah, they do. They take up a lot of power needs. And you do have to think about power whenever you're setting your home up.
What about HVAC and ducts and clean air and all of these things? Is that something to be considered?
Certainly. My favorite system that we work with, and this is just a matter of personal preference, and the luck that I've had is Train and American Standard.
Okay.
And they have some systems out there with the obviously the actual technology behind the HVAC, the inverter drive technology, and all that. I could go on forever and ever and ever on that, but I think what your question is related to is air quality.
Yes, air quality, and thermostat control, things like that.
Sure. And I could do a 30-minute episode on thermostats, but nobody really wants to hear that.
I don't know. Well, it's funny. We talked to Continental Electric, and they were absolutely fascinating. They were all about the thermostat.
Right. Well,
set it and forget it.
Yes, and only use the thermostat that your HVAC system comes with. I'm not a fan of auxiliary thermostats or any of these additional thermostats that. You lose a lot of the technology for these systems. So, in my opinion, Train does it best. And they have a system called Clean Effects.
Okay.
And Clean Effects is a multi-stage filtration system, and it's 3 different phases of filtration, one of which is a pre-filter. Then there's electromagnetic filters, and
all
just a standard type of
like
filter.
That, yeah.
However, the air quality that comes out of that is near hospital grade.
Wow.
And we felt in our particular home, and remember, this filter is the only filter that you're ever gonna have to buy. So you don't have to go to Home Depot or Lowe's or anything like that and pick up a filter every month. This is the last one that you're gonna buy, and you can clean it off, you can vacuum it off. But we've noticed in our own personal house with the air quality, and this travels throughout, day 1 to day 1 million or whenever you pass away.
Do you notice it?
Our daughter has a substantial asthma problem, and we've noticed that whenever we've moved into our new house with this Clean Effects system, the asthma seems to be less and less of an issue.
Wow. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back. We've got a lot more to talk about, but that's absolutely fascinating. I want to talk when we come back a little bit about kitchens. You told me something about induction and pacemakers, things like that. Stay with us. There's more to come here on Aging in Place.
For more podcast episodes, links, information, and media inquiries, please visit our website at aginginplacepodcast.com as we transition through life with the comfort and ease you deserve. Discover how you can create a home that will adapt to you as you journey through life and the changes it will bring. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as our host, Debbie Lines, and her expert guests discuss relevant topics to creating a home for all decades in life. Don't miss our weekly episodes of Aging in Place podcast for every stage in life.
We are back here on Aging in Place. And Brian is just talking away. And I tell you what, we're going to make him talk and share everything that we were just talking about.
All about air quality.
That's right, because you said that is in your wheelhouse, is what Heather said. So talk a little bit about air quality and why it's so important to you.
Well, it's not necessarily just important in the Low Country, even though I feel like we do have a lot more contaminants in the air with just all the pollen, humidity, and all that stuff that's going on outside. But I think in general, you think about your home, and you think about the amount of time you spend in your home, and the time that you spend with your family, and the quality time you spend with your family, and you think about just what you're breathing in every day. It's just like what you're putting in your body when you eat. I mean, it's you've got to be mindful of what you're breathing, what you're putting into your body.
Are houses supposed to be breathable?
It's that's a very
Loaded question.
No, it's kind of a hot topic with everybody. In my opinion, and this is the builder opinion in me. To control the amount of air that comes into your house is an important thing, and the big thing right now is air sealing your home, and we do that with a lot of different things. Spray foam insulation or encapsulations.
Are houses supposed to be breathable? What's the pro of a breathable house? What's the con of a breathable house?
Mm-hmm.
When you're designing a home or building a home, what are you taking into consideration?
Well,
you had mentioned controlled breathing.
Yes. So you want a home to breathe, but you want to control how the home breathes.
Okay.
So there's all different ways to actually take the air that's in the home and exchange it with the exterior air. In the low country, we have very humid environments. We've also got a lot of contaminants out there, allergens out there. So you want to control how you are allowing that air back into your home.
Okay.
They call it replacement air.
Oh.
There's, you think of a cooler that's completely sealed.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you take a fan and you start sucking the air out of that cooler, right?
Okay.
Where's the remaining air coming from? It's coming from all the seals around the outside of it. So it's sucking in the air from the outside, and you want to control where the replacement air is coming from. So you can do that with a couple of different scenarios. Ventilating dehumidifiers are a big thing for me.
Okay. Are those installed? Are they freestanding or they're actually built in?
They are freestanding units.
Okay.
And essentially, it is a port on the outside of your house that takes exterior air.
Okay.
It runs on it can be on a timer. It can be controlled by your thermostat. It can be controlled
Alexa.
by your smartphone. Yeah, it can do it. Yeah, of course. But it is taking exterior air, and that air could be filled with pollen or anything like that. It runs it through a filter.
Okay.
Then it goes through the dehumidification process. Then it goes back into your AC system. Typically, we'll run it through the ductwork that you use for your air conditioning as well, and it's on a damper that opens and closes, so it doesn't allow anything to go in and out. So basically, you've taken the air and you've replaced the air in your house with exterior air, but it's clean exterior air.
Yeah,
and it's dehumidified.
So I'm not going to get
right
mold.
Right, and so now you're actually putting a positive pressure on your home.
Okay.
The air is not, your house isn't sucking air in from all the windows and all that stuff. You're actually putting the air in, so you've controlled where it is. So you're pushing air out. You're not sucking it in. So you think about the things that you're sucking in through all your windows and all the little dust and dirt and stuff like that you see around your windows. You're not getting that negative pressure. You're pushing it out. So, I feel very strongly about a positive pressure home. So you're actually pushing everything away rather than sucking it in.
It's really interesting to me to be talking to both of you, and especially you as a builder. And it makes you recognize and realize why hiring someone who is professional and knows what they're doing is so, I'm being dead serious, is so important.
There's a tremendous science behind what we do.
I mean, it is science.
And it's you have to be passionate about building quality homes.
More importantly,
because it is not something that you can just open up a book.
No.
Or, hey, I watched an HGTV show and I know how to do this. And it's, there are some extremely qualified people in the industry, and there are also some extremely unqualified people in the industry.
I don't necessarily have to be the professional. One of the things that I was impressed with when I met Brian was he didn't know I had anything to do with Aging in Place. And as you were walking me through your home without knowing it, you were talking about your wife, you had 2 little children, you had a family, you were preparing for this. This was a cost-effective way for you to go ahead and block in for handrails. And it was all kinds of things that I was new at learning. And I was like, whoa, I would not have even known to ask the question. We don't know what we don't know.
Sure.
So to your point about choosing a qualified builder and really being aware of hiring someone that's professional, when you're doing these things proactively, might it be a bit more expensive on the front side, but the money that you save on the back side?
I couldn't agree more. And this isn't one of those shameless self-promotion things,
No.
but, I think that, you really do, you need to check your references, and you need to have a real conversation with whoever you have entering your home, and talk to them a little bit about their experiences and what they know. And, if something doesn't sound right,
Right.
check it out.
Exactly.
I get it. Everything that has to do with the home is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But the upfront costs on things will save you a fortune in the back end costs. So I just think that, really, really vetting whoever
That's
right. you're having entering your home to do work.
Well, the other thing that I think is really important, Brian, for choosing a builder is knowing where to spend your money
Mm-hmm.
and where to cut back.
Sure.
And so when we're talking about air quality,
Mm-hmm.
all right, we're talking about amps, we're talking about electrical.
Sure.
Makes sense to me that those are places, although you can't see them, it's not a pretty chair.
No.
But I can get my pretty chair.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? And so it just makes sense to have a professional sort of guide me.
Yeah, and we call it the sticks and bricks of a house. The reality behind it is you only get one shot at it.
Okay.
You can renovate a home. However, once you start cutting into that house, it's never the same house.
Mm-hmm.
So you get one shot at it. So, the sticks and bricks are the part that you really want to get right. The wiring, the plumbing, the HVAC, the ductwork, all those things. It's very, very important that is where, and again, like you said, there's nothing sexy about it. Looking at the studs on a house, you'd much rather have a, gorgeous, cabinet or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you get one shot at it.
What's really, I'm really excited to talk to you, Heather, today, and you, Brian, today. I know we've only got about 30 seconds or so. What we'd like to do is invite you to come back. I mean, we talked about aging in place for any stage in life with your kids, my parents, and we touched on 3 different things. So I think when you start talking about your home, it's like, oh, you're going to be a permanent guest
here. That's the problem with having me on a show.
No, it's great.
I'm passionate about it, so it's one of those.
Well, because you
I will get off on a tangent.
We really appreciate.
Did we even talk
us.
about aging?
Yes, we did. It was subtle. All right.
Well,
thank you both. Thank you all for joining us here on Aging in Place for any stage in life. See you next week.
For more information about building in the Low Country, contact the 12 Oaks Group at the12oaksgroup.com.
I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine, Tracy. Tracy is naturally curious and always creative. And when we were doing the Aging in Place podcast, she said, there are so many quick tips that I can think of offhand. My response, who knew? She's going to be with us every week, giving us a quick tip and a hint that is a practical application.
Thanks, Debbie. Don't lose your noodle just because summer is over. If you have someone prone to rolling out of bed, such as your little ones or even your big ones, place a pool noodle under the fitted sheet to keep them sleeping comfortably all night with no worries. If you're babysitting an infant, you can use more than one to build makeshift railings around the baby, which is much more safer than using pillows. Who knew?
Brian and Heather, you have offered us quite a few takeaways for this podcast session. But I tell you what, the thing that I learned the most is be proactive when you're building a home or renovating, and definitely hire a professional. It's priceless. When you want your home to be a forever home, when you want it to live and function with your lifestyle, hire a professional builder. Thank you all for joining us on this week's episode of Aging in Place for any stage in life.
Aging in Place podcast is hosted by Debbie Lyons and produced by Henrik de Gior. If you have any comments or questions, send an email to debbie@aginginplacepodcast.com. We would love to hear from you. If you're interested in advertising or sponsoring this podcast, email us at pr@aginginplacepodcast.com. Thank you for listening to Aging in Place podcast.